Hello, my name is Garrett Byram, and today I'll be teaching you true facts about diesel-fueled vehicles and motors inside of them. Um, First off, most people when they think of a diesel vehicle, they think of a dirty engine that pollutes a lot of pollution and just guzzles dirty diesel and isn't very fuel efficient at all. Well, that's not the case. Actually, diesel vehicles are very pronounced to be very fuel efficient. Just a few years ago, Dodge came out with a eco diesel motor to put in their 1500 trucks, and this year in the 2015, that motor gets 29 miles to the gallon. Diesel motor gets 29 miles to the gallon, versus their competitor Ford. Their gas motor only gets 26 miles to the gallon. That's a pretty good difference, seeing that diesel and before, and this is starting to now, is cheaper than gas. That's a good incentive to buy, and you get better fuel mileage, and you can still have the luxury of a small truck and actually do better on your emissions while you're at it. Now, another good feature from a diesel vehicle is they're able to produce low amounts of torque at low RPM, high amounts of torque at low RPMs. A diesel motor runs off of compression and turbo, and the mixture of the air being rammed into the cylinder with the diesel injection at the same time at a low RPM, you can get large amounts of torque out of a motor, versus a gas, which would have to have a large amount of fuel to get your large amount of torque. This is why these diesel motors are used in construction all the time, because you could be running 1000 RPMs and you might be making 300 pounds of torque, versus gas you might have to be running 4000 RPMs to be making anywhere close to that, which is a pretty good upcharge, if you say, I guess. Diesel engines are built, since they run off of compression and not a spark plug to ignite the fuel, they're built a lot tougher because they have to withstand the compression all the way to compress it and to explode out to run the motor. Since they run off compression, they are built with more bolts, stronger steel, sometimes aluminum. They do have aluminum motors now. I know Ford, their new motor is, I'm pretty sure it's almost fully aluminum now. And since these motors are built better, they can go longer. They have the ability to go for hundreds of thousands of miles. There's many stories of people getting 400,000 or 500,000 miles out of a single motor, versus a gas motor that you can pull 200 if you do maintenance right and whatnot. Which, that's the key to everything, is maintenance. If you can't maintain it, then it won't last as long as it should. Clean burning vehicles. These vehicles hadn't always been the cleanest burning, but since the EPA is now getting up on these companies to make their diesel motors as clean as possible, you'd be surprised. In 1999, Ford's motor that had a 7.3 turbo diesel, that motor was so inefficient, or I shouldn't say inefficient, it was just polluted so much that they had to go with EGRs and catalytic converters and diesel particulate filters and the exhaust and everything to reburn all this fuel on these next new motors. And so now, in the brand new 6.7 Power Stroke turbo diesel, these motors produce 1/100th of the amount of emissions that the old 7.3 motors made. 15-year-old 7.3 motor versus a brand new 2015 motor, which is pretty impressive in only 15 years to be doing something like that. Now, I mentioned an EGR. EGR stands for exhaust gas recirculation, which means after the cylinder's compressed and is thrusted out, it'll push the exhaust out through the exhaust manifold, and before it gets to the turbo, it'll branch off and go through an EGR, which will cool down the exhaust gas, send it back through the motor to reburn it as it was fresh air. Instead of it being fresh air, it's now exhaust gas, which is going to get reburnt for cleanness. And after that, after it passes through all that, it'll go fully through the exhaust into the catalytic converter and the DPF, which I have here. This big thing is one of three. This is the catalytic converter. On the end would be the DPF, and then out the exhaust pipe. Soot will build up inside of these, and once it gets to a certain limit, a sensor will go off telling the motor to dump a little bit more fuel into the cylinder to reburn all this soot that's particulated up inside of it. And it'll burn at a really hot temperature, and it'll pretty much bake this soot out, and it actually turns the soot. It'll do a chemical reaction inside of there once it gets hot enough, and it'll turn it to water vapor, which is, you know, everything needs water. Which is very, very, I think it's actually pretty cool to think about that. And another thing they use in these trucks, which is aftermarket, and some dealers or manufacturers that are doing this straight from the factory, is it's a programmer. This little bitty thing right here is a programmer. It's hard to just kind of make out what it says, but this is for a 2006 Ford F-250. This plugs into the port on the truck, and you can reprogram it to run more fuel efficient and to make more power on low end. I mean, it's basically a key to open up a lot of options on the truck to help it breathe better, to work better. So as you can see from this video and all the information I've given you, that diesel motors are pretty efficient in the jobs that they're put to, and they can hold up better than a gas motor, and they have a fighting chance in this world of being a true competitor in the fuel game. Thank you.